Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, without wasting time, let's start the today's topic of discussion. That is the role of Alecensa, that is alectinib, in first line ALK positive NSCLC patients. So today's this CME has got this slide set. There are a lot of slide sets. So I would be running fast in initial few slides, which are for other molecule which has been already approved for ALK positive patients of NSCLC, means crizotinib and ceritinib. And in the end, we will discuss the data about alectinib. So that is the order of coming slides. So first, overall, we all know that before discussing all these type of new molecules, particularly for carcinoma lung, we discuss incidence and mortality. So this is the most common, as well as incidence wise, as well as mortality wise world over. And this is as per the latest Globocan data. And if you see the histopathology wise, lung cancer is made of four variety mainly: NSCLC, non-small cell lung cancer, in which adenocarcinoma is more common, and then squamous cell carcinoma, small cell carcinoma, and other variety are less common. And if we talk about Indian continent, Indian part, so here also lung cancer made most common of all new cancer cases, and as well as cancer related death are 9.3% in both sexes in our country. Regarding ALK testing, which is the important topic of discussion, in the sense that earlier there was a recommendation, I would say around 4 years back, that FISH test is the most accepted method of doing the ALK testing. But after a few years or so, since last 3 years, I believe, ISC is also recommended method for ALK rearrangement or mutation. So these are the two recommended method, FISH as well as IHC. In fact, when we are doing NGS, so NGS also as a package, we are able to do that ALK gene rearrangement because we have advantage of doing the many other tests of we all know EGFR, ALK, Roche, MET, BRAF at one go, because we know that tissue is an issue. So basically, with one go, we are able to get all the molecules, all the these mutation analysis in one testing only. Therefore, NGS is the modality of choice nowadays, if we can go for that. So regarding ALK positive patient, how much do we have in our like all the cancer patient we are coming across? That we know that EGFR mutation is more common, roughly around I can say 30 to 40%, even reaching up to 50% in some part of the world. And ALK, when it came into the existence, so initially it was said that it is 1 to 3%. But as the investigation modality was easily available and evolving, so we have seen that ALK positivity rate has increased to, I would say, 7 to 10%. In fact, so it varies by ethnicity, Asian versus Caucasian, and let me say that it is more common in Asian. Although it also depends on the when we go for clinically enriched population. As we know that group for EGFR, like young, female, non-smoker, Asian, so EGFR chances are very high. If the same clinical subgroup EGFR comes negative, then the chances of ALK is also very high. Histologically, we have discussed adeno, squamous, small cell, large cell, other variety. But yeah, ALK, as I said, in literature, this is variable. So we have reached now up to 7% of all patients with advanced NSCLC, and many patients, more than 75,000 patients per year diagnosed globally of this variety, ALK positive patients. And these are the clinically enriched subset, as I said, non-squamous histology, never or former smoker, younger patients, females, and patients who don't have EGFR or KRAS mutation. So clinically characteristic do not always predict the presence of ALK positive NSCLC. So this is called the clinically enriched, means the incidence of ALK positive is higher in these patients, even maybe beyond 20% or 30% in these subgroups. So ALK positive NSCLC is defined by rearrangement of ALK gene. We know that in ALK there are ML4 ALK fusion protein after this gene rearrangement, which is a causative factor behind this anomaly. And incidence wise, as I said, some literature showing even beyond, even up to 13%. So this is, I'm also surprised to see that it is going up to 13% in some studies, because I was knowing up to 7 to 8% only. So although in literature, if we read the literature, maybe they are 3-4 year old literature. In those, they are reported as 3% of lung cancer, more commonly found in young patients with adeno and history of never or light smoker. So bottom line is that its incidence is very variable, depends on the region where we are seeing the patient, and it's higher in our country. So we all know that what are the approved ALK inhibitor. After that, we should know which one is different in what sense. Easily available, we know that crizotinib, ceritinib, and alectinib. These are in the market, and we have an option to use. So after this presentation, we will be more wiser to analyze which one is the better agent in terms of efficacy as well as side effect profile. So this was the first ALK inhibitor, crizotinib, and it is a small molecule inhibitor tyrosine kinase activity of MET, ALK, ROS1, and RON. So it inhibits the ALK receptor activation by blocking the ATP binding site. We call it as a selective inhibitor tyrosine kinase of this ALK, although it is not so selective because it inhibits the MET, ROS1, and other molecule also. Second generation are more selective, therefore more potent, and therefore might be more effective. So this is the first generation ALK inhibitor, and by inhibiting the EML4 ALK fusion protein, it prevents the downstream signaling pathway, which are involved in regulating the proliferation and cell survival. And the landmark trial of this crizotinib was Profile 1014. We should all remember this trial because we have been using this molecule, and although this is not so good in response rate wise, we'll see, but yeah, this is the cheapest as of now. So randomized multicenter phase 3 open label study of first line crizotinib versus chemo in ALK positive NSCLC. So randomization was ALK positive disease according to FISH. At that time, as I said, FISH was the recommended method of choice for diagnosing ALK positivity, and locally advanced or metastatic NSCLC were taken into account. No prior platinum regime was included in these patients. Good performance status, and randomization was 1:1. Crizotinib standard dose 250 milligram twice a day, and it was compared with the head-to-head with the standard was pemetrexed and cisplatin, which was the comparable arm. And primary endpoint was progression-free survival, and secondary endpoint was overall survival, overall response rate, safety and quality of life, and pharmacokinetic studies. So statistical factor was as per the performance status, CNS metastasis, whether it was there at the baseline or not, and ethnicity. So these were some free survival. So 10.9 months was the progression-free survival with the crizotinib, as compared to 7 months with pemetrexed combination. So this is the value which we should keep in mind. Roughly around 11 months. So roughly around 11 months was the progression-free survival with the first line TKI of ALK inhibitor. Response rate, we see it was huge, tremendous difference as compared to chemotherapy. Only 45% response rate with the chemo and 74% with the crizotinib. And median time to response was around 1.4 months. And here it takes around 3 months. And median duration of response was roughly around 11 months over here with the crizotinib. So final OS analysis intention to treat population, if we see, that was published by Tony Mock et al. In 2017. And with this curve, what we analyzed that median follow-up was around 46 months. Crizotinib median OS was not reached, and chemotherapy is 47.5 months. And if you see 4-year overall survival rate was 60% roughly with the crizotinib and 50% with the chemotherapy. So definitely crizotinib was better than chemotherapy in terms of response rate as well as overall survival data also. If we talk about adverse event profile, we do have vision disorders. We have experience in our practice also. Diarrhea, edema, vomiting, constipation, liver enzyme were raised. So 14% patients had grade 3 or 4. Neutropenia was found in some patients. Anemia was found. So these are all side effects which we come across with crizotinib. And mainly we used to analyze these vision disorder as well as LFT alteration. After that, we have seen the response rate, outcome analysis, side effect profile. Then one fallacy with crizotinib was that it doesn't have any good activity in the brain. Why? Because it enters the brain by crossing the blood-brain barrier, but after crossing it, there's a high expression of PGP in the brain also. So with the high expression, this exit channel of PGP, so it gets exited out from the brain. So there is no activity of the crizotinib in the brain, because as soon as it enters, then it gets out. So this channel. So very low brain to plasma ratio was seen, and intracranial activity was at the very minimal level. So in profile 1014, this only study which we are discussing right now, it has shown modest activity in the CNS. Median intracranial TTP for patient with brain metastasis was 12.5 months for chemotherapy, and it was better with the crizotinib 15.7 months. So it has got some activity in the brain, but not very good as we are thinking with the other molecules. So ultimately, relapse occurs following crizotinib treatment, and more commonly relapse we are seeing in the brain. So sanctuary site of the brain, and some patients do have systemic disease after progression. But yeah, so many patients we have seen that there is only intracranial progression. So this is very good slide which showed that what are the proposed mechanism of resistance to these molecules, and they have labeled that, as we see and discuss with the EGFR mutation, these are three basic mechanisms of acquired resistance. So if we label the ALK resistance mechanism also, they are more or less same. First is second site mutation oncogenic driver gene. In EGFR we see T790M mutation, most common. Similarly, there is a ALK L1196M mutation. ALK L1196M mutation, which is acquired mutation. And second resistance mechanism is amplification. Third is other oncogenic drivers gets activated, means EGFR receptor gets more activated, or KIT amplification. So these are basic three mechanisms of acquired resistance to ALK inhibitor, which we are seeing. Obviously, there are some more mechanisms of resistance. Like if you see, there are many resistance mutations are there. Most common we said L1196M. There are more mutations. G122R. So maybe some molecules are under pipeline for this particular mutation. So there are increased copy number gain also. This is one mechanism. Or alternative mechanisms are, as I say, EGFR gets activated, or KIT mutation are seen. So basically these are the main mechanisms. So most common was the secondary mutation. So roughly around 30% patients have this type of acquired resistance. So now we are going to discuss the second molecule, which is ceritinib, and it is in the dose of 750 milligram per day. And the landmark trial for this drug was ASCENT-4, and randomization was again same, more or less same. Newly diagnosed stage 3B or 4, relapsed locally advanced metastatic adenocarcinoma, ALK positive disease as per the IHC. Here there is a difference. You must notice that they have taken IHC here, and in profile 1014 they have taken FISH. So it was the evolving phase, and more than or one equal to one, more than equal to one measurable lesion as divided by resist 1.1. So randomization again with the standard pemetrexed, cisplatin or carboplatin, followed by PEM maintenance. So primary endpoint was PFS. So this is the number which we should keep in mind: 16.6 with the Ceritinib. With Crizotinib it was 11, 10.9 months, and here it is 16.6 months. So big jump from the first molecule with this Ceritinib. And if we talk about brain metastasis, without brain metastasis baseline, so number without brain metastasis 26.3 PFS, with brain metastasis 10.7 months as compared to 6.7 months. So it has got good activity in the brain, better than the Crizotinib. And if we talk about adverse event, so there was similar rate of toxicity for Ceritinib versus chemotherapy. More or less side effect profile was same in both subgroup, and adverse event leading to dose adjustment or interruption delay was more in Ceritinib. So that is one drawback with this drug, which is 70%. So 70% of the patient were required dose adjustment in some form or other because of side effect profile. And as we have discussed that there was a more PGP expression in the brain, which was the cause of Crizotinib getting out of the brain into the blood. So here there are two mechanisms that along with the PGP, one more thing is there, BCRP. They said there are two drug efflux transporter protein. We know PGP we were knowing, and this is one new BCRP, which can eject drugs out of the blood-brain barrier through active efflux. So Ceritinib is a substrate for both PGP and BCRP. CNS exposure of Crizotinib and Ceritinib may therefore be inadequate to control the disease, and therefore CNS may be a sanctuary site of tumor growth in due course of time. First site of progression, therefore, it is said that 46% of patients treated with Crizotinib has brain involvement, with Ceritinib around 42%. So slightly better than the Crizotinib in terms of intracranial response rate. So progression in the CNS may occur due to the development of one or more of the non-mechanical resistance to ALK inhibitor, which we have discussed in previous slides. Now, we come to the molecule of which of today discussion, which is mainly Alectinib. How it is different from the Crizotinib. This slide very well shows that first generation Crizotinib was active against ALK, ROS1, MET, RON. So it was not so selective, although Alectinib is highly selective for ALK only. We can see that this blue bar was very going up very far off with all the variety of ALK this variation. So this is highly selective molecule. Why it is, therefore it is called second generation ALK inhibitor. Regarding activity against ALK kinase in vitro in different mutations, we see so Alectinib is active against even we were this L1196M, G122R. So these are two most common, and we see the activity of Crizotinib bar is very short of. On the other hand, Alectinib has got very good activity against particularly this mutation, L1196M. So it means this Alectinib newer molecule has got greater potency also in vitro as well as in vivo also. So these are all pharmacokinetics molecule studies to show that activity of Alectinib in the brain is much higher than the other molecules. So these are the differentiating point of Alectinib: selectivity high, potency high, resistance mutation not much, CNS penetration is very high. This trial as first line treatment of ALK positive NSCLC patient because it has been found to be better than the Crizotinib, and in the trial of LX, this has been compared head-to-head with the Crizotinib. So this is the molecule which has more robust data, more trial, Like JLX, it was studied in Japanese population, roughly 200 patients. ALX, 300 patients were taken, and there was another study, Alicia, which was done in the Asian population. And I think there was another study also, Allure. Allure was done for second line alectinib after failure of crizotinib. So in there also it has shown very good response rate in second line. So more robust data for alectinib, and this is the landmark trial which I was saying, ALEX phase 3 study for this ALK positive NSCLC patient. Randomization, same characteristic, like stage 3B4 ALK positive according to IHC test, treatment naive, good performance status. 300 patients were divided into 1:1 alectinib versus. Best part is that they have chosen crizotinib, not the chemotherapy drugs, pemetrexed, carboplatin. So they have taken crizotinib as a standard. Therefore, this trial has got more authenticity to say that it's got better response rate and efficacy as compared to crizotinib. So both were continued until progressive disease or toxicity or withdrawal. So primary endpoint was PFS, obviously, and secondary was some other points or like duration response or response. So after this data publication of ALEX was out, there was a 3 more publications. The latest was presented in ESCO 2020, and for ESCO 2020 data cutoff was in November 2019 to analyze the OS benefit. So longest median follow-up was 48 months with the alectinib, and crizotinib were followed for 23 months. So it is the most comprehensive study of first-line alectinib, which is being investigated in a global patient population. So baseline characteristic, if we see of this ALEX study, age were well balanced in both crizotinib and alectinib. Asian were taken in both, non-Asian were taken in both. CNS and metastasis were there in 38 patients in crizotinib, 42 patients in alectinib, and then no metastasis in 58. So active smoker, non-smoker, past smoker, all variety were taken. In fact, adenocarcinoma and squamous cell carcinoma were also taken into account, and other patients where ALK positive was found. So this data also means that we should go for ALK even in the squamous cell carcinoma patient. Although chances are less, but yes, we do get ALK positive in squamous cell carcinoma patients. And prior brain radiation was taken or given or not. CNS metastases were handled by brain surgery, radiosurgery, different modality, all were taken into account. So this was a number, as we have discussed, first trial, Profile 1014. This was a number, 10.9 months, roughly 11 months PFS. And here in ALEX trial, that is 34.8 months. So roughly around 3 years with good hazard ratio 0.43. So nearly 3 years freedom from progression, and a huge difference, 3 times longer efficacy benefit as compared to crizotinib. If you see the event-free rate, it was also higher with the alectinib, even around 4 years of a follow-up. Subgroup analysis, which shows that even either male or female, even elderly more than 65, smoker, non-smoker, active smoker, Asian, non-Asian, CNS mets was their baseline or not, prior radiation received to the brain or not. So all these subgroups were more in favor of alectinib in terms of response rate rather than crizotinib. So secondary endpoint, which was that PFS by baseline in CNS metastasis status. So for CNS, if you see the patients with pre-existing CNS metastasis, Alecensa means alectinib has got 25.4 months PFS, more than 2 years. Without brain metastasis, we have discussed around 3 year PFS. So even with the brain metastasis, there is more than 2 year median progression-free survival we can see with the alectinib. So patients who has got CNS metastasis at baseline, without CNS metastasis, we have seen that it is active in both. Obviously, lesser in patients who has got brain metastasis at front line. But response is being maintained even after 4 years in both subset. Again, more or less similar, same thing. 84% reduction with the alectinib in the CNS progression. So only 9.4% progression was seen in the alectinib. So if you see the response rate wise, response rate was not much higher with the alectinib. Only difference is that duration of response, which is almost 3 times higher with the alectinib. So 11 months over here and roughly around more than 33 months with the alectinib. So duration of response is one thing which is much higher than the other molecule. So investigator assessed systemic best overall response in intention to treat population. So all these things, like if you see the stable disease, partial response, CR was also much higher with the alectinib, and it was seen in more patients than in the crizotinib patients. Again, same thing, duration response was much higher. Yeah, this slide shows that CNS progression without prior systemic progressive disease. So CNS progression was also better in alectinib, like 18 patients has progression as compared to 68 patients in the crizotinib. So this cause specific hazard ratio was 0.16, so which is also a remarkable difference with this newer molecule. And in tumor reduction in the responder, those patients who have responded, they have analyzed, means like more than 50% reduction in the tumor's bulk, more than 75% reduction in the tumor bulk. So more patients have in both, like more than 50 also higher, and more than 70% also higher in the alectinib arm as compared to crizotinib. So overall survival, I said last year data was up to 2020 latest data, in which they have shown up to, I think, 38 months with the alectinib. So we can say that OS data is still not very mature, because follow-up is still going on, and more follow-up analysis we might come across in due course of time. And 6 out of 10 patients are still alive at 5-year follow-up of this trial. And this was a 5-year OS analysis and published in Annals of Oncology 2020 by Mock et al. If we see the 5-year survival analysis with the alectinib and crizotinib, 84 months, 84% at 1 year, 5 year, they are 62%, as compared to 45% with the crizotinib. Obviously, these includes the second line or third line drugs after failure of both of these molecules. And side effect profile, if we see both drugs, 28 patients, median treatment duration was 28 at the time of analysis of this safety profile, 10.8 months with crizotinib. So more or less, if we see, side effect profile were almost similar with the crizotinib. Serious adverse event was 30%, grade 3 to 5 was 50%. Adverse event leading to dose reduction was in 20% here and 20% crizotinib. So more or less equivalent was seen. And more than 10% of patients had these got side effect: nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, LFT alteration, fatigue, dizziness, dysgeusia, visual impairment, is although less with the alectinib, which was much higher with the crizotinib. So some sort of rash was also seen with the alectinib, arthralgia, back pain, and all these side effects was seen in roughly around more than 10% of the patients. So after discussing these 3-4 molecules, what we have not discussed, that is brigatinib or lorlatinib, which if we suppose are available with us. So this is the sequence of drug which we can follow in our practice. If we have used crizotinib front, and then if we use ceritinib, then lorlatinib, so we can see that patient can go for around 2 years. After ceritinib, if you use alectinib, as per the ALLO trial, we get 10.9 months more. Then lorlatinib with 6.9 months. So altogether, we get around 2.5 years. So this is the sequence. If you use Ceritinib upfront, 16.6, very good. After that, Lorlatinib. So we get around 23 months. So last is Alectinib. If you use upfront, so straight away with one drug we are getting 3 years PFS. And then after failure of this, we can use the Lorlatinib, which are giving around another 6 or more months. So this is the sequence in which we can go for with our patient. After failure of these, obviously we have immuno-oncological drugs as per IM Power 150, or chemotherapeutic options are always there. So in the end, as per the NCCN guideline, if we talk about ALK positive NSCLC, first line is Alectinib, which is preferred. Other option, although they have put Brigatinib, Ceritinib, or in some circumstances Crizotinib. So after progression, depends only brain is the progression, then gives the radiation to the brain and continue with the same drug. That is the idea. And if there are multiple systemic disease, then Lorlatinib is an option as a second line. If Alectinib is not used upfront, then obviously we can use Alectinib as a second line. Although in this sequence, I am seeing that Alectinib they are not put in the second line, only in the first line. But yeah, Alectinib we can use in the second line also. And as per ESMO, also more or less same guideline. Oligoprogression, we can go for local therapy and then continue the same TKI. So Alecensa is the preferred first line treatment option and standard of care for patient ALK positive NSCLC because it has demonstrated longest median PFS of any ALK TKI in phase 3 trial. It effectively protects against and treats CNS metastasis. It is the only TKI, ALK TKI, to have demonstrated meaningful benefit in OS versus Crizotinib. And it is obviously well tolerated with a well-characterized manageable safety profile. So after this, these were the conclusion guideline that this updated ALX data confirms that PFS is benefit is there of 34.8 months, longer duration of response, and impressive CNS efficacy is seen. And as per all the guidelines, this Alectinib has become the preferred choice in all these type of patients. So there was some presentation by Tony Mock about this ALEX trial, in which they have analyzed whether this was effective in the Asian or it was done only on non-Asian. So they have shown that this drug was equally effective in Asian population also. So on the left side, Asian population response was seen, and in the right there are non-Asian. So they demarcated in the Asian and non-Asian, and response was similarly seen in both subgroup. So without hesitating, we can accept this ALEX trial in our patients. So this is just a package insert. We know that this is available in the capsule form, 150 milligram and 600 milligram twice a day. So 4 capsule morning and 4 capsule evening with food, and there might be some dose adjustment required depending on side effect profile. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.